Hello, everyone, and welcome to World Aquatic Animal Day. I'm here with Amy Wilson, and I'll let her begin us.
Hey, thank you so much, Kathy. Good morning or afternoon or evening, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 World Aquatic Animal Day, Disentangling the Sustainability Myth in Fishing and Aquaculture. We are very excited to have you all here today with us, virtually joining from around the globe. We have a full day of events lined up, but before we get started, we wanted to give a very brief introduction to ourselves, to World Aquatic Animal Day, and of course, our very important guests of honor, Aquatic Animals. So who are we? I'm Amy P. Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of Animal Law Reform South Africa. I'm one of the originators of World Aquatic Animal Day. And during my time as a fellow of the Aquatic Animal Law Initiative, I'm thrilled at the interest and support for this event. My pronouns are she, her.
And I'm Professor Kathy Hessler. I'm the Director of the Animal Law Clinic and the Aquatic Animal Law Initiative here at Lewis and Clark, and my pronouns are she, her.
Great. So World Aquatic Animal Day is an annual event held on April the 3rd, dedicated to aquatic animals. We'll highlight a little bit more about this day and the need for it in a bit. It's a project of the Aquatic Animal Law Initiative and the Animal Law Clinic at the Center for Animal Law Studies. The clinic and CALS are based at Lewis and Clark Law School in the beautiful Portland, Oregon, USA. So the goal of the day is ultimately to raise global awareness about these often forgotten non-human animals. They play critical roles in our societies and our ecosystems, but they are not important only because of these roles. They are valuable and exciting individuals with intrinsic worth. We believe that there's an urgent need to give aquatic animals the proper consideration that they deserve. They face immense challenges and threats, and in order for their, as well as our own survival, we must consider how we affect them. This is why our focus and our theme for this year is disentangling the sustainability myth in fishing and aquaculture. So while we may be aware that as Homo sapiens, we have a major impact on our earth and other non-human animals, people may not be aware of just how massive and devastating these are. Importantly, as consumers and as members of the public, we are often misinformed or even actually misled about certain activities. Today, we selected two such activities specifically, being wild-caught fishing and the farming of aquatic species, which is otherwise known as aquaculture. Today, we hope to educate people about some of the harms as well as the myths surrounding these industries, particularly around how they intersect with concepts such as sustainability. We aim to call for action and change, and we also hope to bring people together and ignite a discussion and a passion to protect these animals and their habitats going forward.
And before we begin our day, we are letting you know that we're hosting here from Portland, Oregon, and we think it's important to acknowledge the ancestors of this place and recognize that we're here because of them. At Lewis and Clark, we honor the indigenous people on whose traditional and ancestral homelands we stand. They include the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Watlala bands of the Chinook, the Tualatin Kalapuya, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River. In remembering these communities, we honor their legacy, their lives, and their descendants. We know that land acknowledgements can be fraught, but we think they are important to do. And we think we can learn much about respectful relationships with animals and the planet from these historical and present day communities, especially in the conversations we're going to have today.
Great, thank you. Well, we have a very exciting schedule for today. There's a number of panels that are going to be covering a lot of different ground, or rather water. All of the time slots you see on the slide are in Pacific time, and most of the sessions are around 50 minutes. So please don't forget to register on the website to get the Zoom webinar links. All of the sessions will be recorded and they will be available at a later date. Starting at 9 a.m. Pacific time, we have Jennifer Jacquet and Lynn Snedden discussing science and unsustainable practices in industrial aquaculture and fisheries. Following on from them at 10 a.m., we have Amy Van Saun and Diego Plaza speaking on room for improvement, insufficient accountability in our legal frameworks. After that session at 11 a.m., Miranda Eisen and Andrew Crum will be delving into pathways to a sustainable and desirable future. For our lunchtime session at 12:30 p.m., Chelsea B. Davis and Mackenzie DeVito will be doing a lunch and learn with Veggies Do It Better and ARC PDX. At 1 p.m., we will learn about the power of alternatives from Ashley Kirk and Matthew de Gruyter. Then our final session of the day is at 4 p.m., where Katie Control, Al Neal, and Josie Moberg will be hosting an in-person community event. So for this schedule, and then for all of the information around the day, please visit the website, www.worldaquaticanimalday.org. We also encourage you to take a look at some of the resources that have been compiled, including a resource packet put together by the wonderful students and director of the Animal Law Clinic, the Aquaculture memo, the fact sheets, the 10 ways to get involved poster, which provides useful tips on how to take action for aquatic animals, even from your own home. And it's also available in different languages this year to make it more accessible. There are also resources from the previous years on the website, which are rich with information, and we encourage you to check these out too. There's a separate Facebook link for the Lunch and Learn session, which is also on the website. Throughout the day, there will be posts on the Facebook event page, and you can also just search around by World Aquatic Animal Day. Finally, no matter how, where, and what you do to participate in this day or how many sessions you're able to attend, we ask that you please share the dedicated hashtag, which is simple, hashtag World Aquatic Animal Day. And then this way, we're able to track how many people are getting involved, from where they're doing it, and how many people are actually willing to speak up for aquatic animals. So please share this far and wide, and let's make these invisible victims more visible and raise awareness.
Thanks, Amy. And so before we begin with our substantive speakers for the day, we thought it would be helpful to do an overview of aquatic animals and why we're talking about them. So one of the things that we have realized in our work is that most people don't even know who all these animals are, where they are, what they do, what they're like. And so we just thought it might be helpful to share an overview. So aquatic animals are any animals who live or need aquatic resources. So they can be living in marine water, in fresh water, in brackish water. They can be living in and out of water. The list of animals, the types, the categories of animals that you see on the left-hand side of the screen are the basic categories, but we could break down and talk about all of these different kinds of animals for quite a long time, and we won't do that right now. But we do want to bring to your attention that we're not just talking about fishes, especially because we're talking about aquaculture today and wild-caught fishing. The industry uses the term, and governments use the term fishing, but they mean it broadly to include many, many different kinds of species, crustaceans, mollusks, marine mammals even sometimes, as well as fin fishes. So we want you to have a sense of the kinds of animals who are implicated in the conversations that we'll be having today. I think that there's also a sort of understanding about the animals that are being farmed as well right now. So those animals, again, are not just fin fishes. And some people think we're raising mostly fin fishes for food, but we're raising all kinds of animals for food in the aquaculture systems. And we're going to be focusing mostly today on the animals we're raising for food, but we also want to note that some of these animals are farmed for other purposes as well, for medicine, for research, for leather, like alligators and crocodiles. So all kinds of aquatic animals are in aquaculture settings or are being caught from the wild for many, many purposes for which humans are putting them. So we want you to have a sort of sense of the broad categories of animals so that you can be thinking about that as we talk about the animals throughout the day. And so why are we focusing on aquatic animals? Well, because they matter. We think they matter for themselves. We think the animal law perspective brings to this conversation the idea that these animals as individuals matter. And so if they're suffering, we need to be looking at that suffering. We need to be thinking about how to regulate our own behavior as human beings so that we don't increase or cause their suffering. We also know that species survival is very important. So as we know, we're losing many, many species throughout the years, and that's problematic. We don't want that to be happening. We also know that these animals are important for the environment. They're key to the habitat, and we all benefit from a healthy, rich environment. So there are human benefits that we can derive from protecting these animals without actually using them. And so that's the framework that we're going to be sort of talking to you from today.
Great, thank you. So as Kathy mentioned, many people are aware of some of the more common ways that we utilize and even define aquatic animals. And these include as food, or you might even think of the goldfish in your own home. However, there are a number of other ways that people tend to think about less. And why their use and definition is important is because it determines how they are treated, both within our societies, but also legally. So, for example, aquatic animals who are used for food are often excluded from anti-cruelty laws. And this is sometimes because they are not included in the definition of animal at all, or sometimes because this use is then specifically excluded or exempted. So, if you think of a practical example, a goldfish might receive protection as a pet, but that same protection is not offered to a fish or other animals that are used for food. We also offer more protection to animals who are, say, charismatic species, so such as dolphins or whales, and that is compared to, for example, crabs or shrimps. Then additionally, endangered and threatened species tend to receive more protection than those who are not. Aquatic animals who are considered to be pests are usually killed without thought. And then those who are used in research and testing may have horrible experiments performed on them where they suffer in the name of science. Some animals are used for beauty products like pearl earrings or necklaces. And as Kathy mentioned, alligators are used for their skins in handbags and other products. Some aquatic animals are used for entertainment at zoos and aquaria. And then even perhaps surprising to some is that certain aquatic animals are even used as work animals, so dolphins within the Navy. The list of these uses is almost endless, and it's increasing all the time. So on the slide, as we look at these, it's important to see some of the ways and the means that we use these animals, which is by no means a complete list, but also to understand that these are the different contexts in which they appear, and also how their treatment is subsequently implicated and then reflected within our legal systems. Great. So World Aquatic Animal Day, as we said, this is the third year of the event. It was launched for the first time in 2020. And each year, students take the lead at raising global awareness about these often forgotten non-human animals. And it's important to know that even if people don't necessarily care about their animals themselves, protecting them is crucial to our world health, to animal health, to human health, and environmental health. And as we've mentioned, the theme is disentangling the sustainability myth. But why was that theme selected? Well, one of the reasons is because the United Nations General Assembly declared 2022 the International Year of Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture. And here we do think it's important to note that there is a distinction between commercialized and industrialized fishing and aquaculture compared to artisanal fishing and aquaculture. So when we say artisanal fishing, what it is traditional subsistence fishing. It's usually small scale, using low technology, and undertaken either by individuals or small groups. Many of these people are coastal or island ethnic groups. This form of fishing is much smaller and less harmful than commercial and industrial scale fishing, which occurs on a massive scale using high technology and with the main purpose being commercial or business, i.e. making money. Such industrialized fishing is extremely harmful to animals, humans, and the planet. And the same sort of differences apply in the context of industrialized and commercialized aquaculture and artisanal aquaculture. This is despite such industries talking about their activities being sustainable, which is why we need to disentangle the myth, as Kathy will explain further.
Thank you. So we know that people don't fully understand the scale at which these animals are being used. And so the idea that fishing is a sustainable endeavor comes from our history. So human beings have been fishing for millennia. And in the past, it has been sustainable in that the animals have been able to regenerate, the habitats have not been degraded. But we have changed how we do our fishing, and we have changed by creating an aquaculture system, a system of farming carnivorous animals in ways that we haven't really done as a human race for at least in industrial ways for a long time. And so right now we know that the numbers of which these animals are killed and used is so large that governments and the industry tend to measure them in tons of animals used, tons of animals killed. And so we don't have an exact estimate. We also don't have an exact estimate of how many animals are used because we don't keep track, right? Because they're not sort of seen as valuable enough individually. But the estimates are that between 1 to 3 trillion aquatic animals are killed for food annually. And that doesn't count the other animals killed in this system. So killed in illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing, from ship strikes, from pollution, from ghost gear, from so many other reasons. And so we're talking about a very, very, very large industry that's trying to position itself as being sustainable, as being an appropriate way to create protein and food for the planet, especially as our human population continues to grow and we recognize there isn't enough land mass to continue developing our protein in the way that we currently do from land animals. So this is a problem. Right. So we're moving towards a situation where we understand we need more food as we have more people, and the fishing industry and the aquaculture industry are positioning themselves as being a sustainable alternative to land-based food systems. So we also know that the industrial scale of these industries impact the globe. So they impact the environment, but they also impact lots of other people. So the local fisher folk are losing their livelihoods. Indigenous and tribal rights are affected. There are lawsuits and actual battles, actual violence is happening between folks in the indigenous fishing community and the non-indigenous fishing community. We know that it is important, and we support the need to alleviate poverty and get access to food more sustainably for people around the planet. We just don't think this is necessarily the way to do it. And so we want to explore that conversation with people today. And so we want to also help people understand different definitions of sustainability. So we're already talking about why we don't think this is sustainable in some respects. But for true sustainability, we think any system that is truly sustainable would need to consult and work with local and indigenous peoples, would need to include the interests of the animals themselves in the calculations. Currently, that's not a part of our conversation around sustainability, both as individuals and as species. That we would need to stop seeing animals and the natural world primarily as resources for human use, and we would need to have it have some value in and of itself. That we would need to recognize that fishing and aquaculture are not the only exploitative and extractive uses of the natural environment. So when we say this is sustainable, looking at it all by itself, that doesn't look at mining, it doesn't look at all these other kinds of extractive uses and pollution and harmful activities that we are doing in the same habitats. And so we need to look at the combined impact of those uses. And that we need to assess the sustainability and harm within the context of those other uses, those harms, those threats, and those degradations. And so if we start looking at that, then I think we'd be in a better position to evaluate what is sustainable and whether in fact these activities meet those definitions. Great. So the Aquatic Animal Law Initiative, or AALI as we call it, is something that we started at Lewis and Clark in the Animal Law Clinic. In the work that I had been doing, I was looking for resources, information, support for all of the other kinds of animal law work that I was doing and not finding it. And so we decided we need to get this information. We need to actually ask these questions, not that we can answer all of them within the clinic and within the Aquatic Animal Law Initiative, but we need to begin asking these questions and raise up to the level of consciousness and to the level of conversation the aquatic animals in all of the work that we're doing for animals. So we, in intentionally looking at these animals, have discovered even more how they're abused and misunderstood. They're ignored, they're unseen, and they're underrepresented. And because we literally don't see them, it's hard to remember and to bring them into our consciousness and bring them into the protection of the law. But they're not generally protected in law, by policy, or by society. They're treated as a means to other ends and therefore used, abused, and exploited. They're the largest number of non-human animals other than insects, and they are sentient. This is a really important conversation that our scientists will be having very shortly with us. Because they are sentient, it is important for us to recognize that we can cause them pain and harm, and that we need to therefore look at our behavior. And so we think they need to be valued, respected, and protected from those harms. So our mission is to do just that, is to protect and promote the interests of aquatic animals by advocating on their behalf through the legal system, to promote their value to the public by providing education about their cognitive, emotional, and psychological capacities, and to harmonize human, animal, and environmental interests in the work that we do. Great. So I'll give a quick thanks to our speakers that we're going to have today, to our students and volunteers, our community partners, the student groups helping us, the Center for Animal Law Studies that supports us, Lewis and Clark Law School that supports us, our wonderful IT people, and the participating organizations and individuals globally, as well as everyone, organizations, scientists, professionals working in this space. We want to call out their work and uplift that, and all of you for attending and joining us in these conversations today. So thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Kathy. So with all of that, I think it's about time to dive into our exciting day. Our first session will be starting in about 10 minutes on the same link. So thanks again for all of you supporting us. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, drop them in the chat box. And otherwise, enjoy World Aquatic Animal Day. Thanks.
Thank you.